Well, welcome everyone to Dementia Chats. I'm Laurie LeBay, the founder of Alzheimer's Speaks, and my mother had dementia for 30 years. And so when I started Alzheimer's Speaks, one of the things I was really adamant about doing was to have the voice of dementia be heard. And that is what I love about our Dementia Chats, is all of our experts are truly living with a diagnosis, and they have brilliant insights that they will share with us today. We're just going to go around and have everybody introduce themselves. So Pauline, I'm going to have you start, please.
Okay, my name is Pauline Gordon. I was diagnosed 5 years ago at age 57 with vascular dementia, and I'm involved in a lot of different advocacy activities to replace the purpose I lost when I lost my career.
Great, thank you. True?
My full legal name is really Truthful, Loving Kindness. My current diagnosis is mild cognitive impairment because my decline is just so slow. And like Pauline, I'm very active in several areas of advocacy.
Great, thank you. Craig?
Hi, my name is Craig Hankey. My diagnosis is Lewy body dementia with Parkinson's. I'm involved with Dementia Mentors and Forget Me Not Lewy body dementia groups also.
Okay, great. Thank you. Laurie?
My name's Laurie Scherrer. 4 years and 4 months ago, I was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and FTD, which is frontotemporal dementia. And I'm involved in quite a few advocacy programs and mentoring programs.
Wonderful. Thanks. Bob?
My name is Bob Savage. I live in Plantsville, Connecticut. I was diagnosed with mild vascular dementia and early diagnosis about 2 years, early Alzheimer's about 2 years ago. I'm also very active in a lot of public speaking and a lot of advocacy groups, and having a pretty exciting life around that area.
Wonderful. Thank you. Michael?
My name is Michael Ellenbogen, and I'm a dementia advocate.
Thank you, Michael. Well, today's topic that we chose is how spouses have been impacted by dementia. And so I'm going to kick this off by having Laurie start us off. And so if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit on this topic.
I think one of the most difficult things for me going through this journey of dementia has been how it impacted my husband. And the main way it impacted him was, for 15 years, he had been counting down the day he was to retire, which was July 7th of 2014. And it was getting closer and closer. And then the end of 2013, I was diagnosed with dementia and couldn't work any longer, which meant he had to continue to work. So his great plan of 15 years to retire was squelched. And I've watched this year, he had pneumonia twice this year. And when he had it in December, he had used all his sick time being on doctor visits and everything else. And so he went to work every day for a week with a temperature of 100, 101. And every day when he left the house, I cried. I just cried, because if I had not gotten sick, he would have been able to stick to his plan. And it just, it was really very difficult seeing 15 years worth of a plan go away.
Mm-hmm. And that would be difficult, you know, but, you know, when you're in a relationship, you know, it's kind of that for better or for worse, but it doesn't make it any easier to accept that change has come into place. Let me ask you this though, Laurie, if the shoe was on the other foot, what would you have done?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I mean, we would have. We've been married 36 years.
Mm-hmm.
We've been friends for 46 years. And so it's like I've known him forever. He's been my friend forever.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have taken care of him without even thinking about it. But that's not the way it was. And it's very hard when you see so many of your hopes and dreams not only changed, but definitely having an impact on your spouse and what it has done to him. But we need the medical insurance, we need the financially, we need the paycheck. So in spite of, and he was retiring because he has medical conditions, and the medical conditions have been getting worse. So we felt as though that was when he needed to retire. So now he's working and struggling health wise, and that, you know, he leaves the house at 4:30 every morning, and sometimes I cry. I think, wow, this is not what I wanted for him. This is not what our dreams had been. I loved working, and I was looking forward to working till I was 70 because I just thought it was great bringing in the money that I brought in, you know. And then to see his dreams shattered was really hard. And also our dreams of things we wanted to do, the traveling we wanted to do, things we wanted to do to the house. I mean, all your dreams need to be refocused, because now financially you're not in the same mode you were in before. Physically, you're not in the same mode you were in before. So all your hopes and dreams, I think, in some way or another get impacted.
Okay. Thank you for sharing. Bob, how would you say your disease has impacted your relationship with your spouse?
Significantly. It's my second marriage. My wife is 15 years younger. Even though I was married to her, I'm married to her for 30 years. What was happening there was the fear that took over. From her perspective, it was a fear of what she'd have to give up of her life to have the energy to take care of me. Not that she didn't want to do it. And so, and I was upset because then the word burden showed up. I'm now a burden, right? And she's upset because of my illness. So you start to personalize that. And what happened, we got into a serious clash of anger at this whole process. And the relationship as a result of that became very toxic. And at one point, we were arguing so hard, and I was so angry at the whole thing, that I saw this face of mine coming out with a fist. And I'm saying, my God, who is this person? Because if I'd have started hitting, I would have been, this is how, you know, I had a temper, but never like this. And I think this is related somewhat to the diagnosis. That's when we agreed at that point that we have to separate in some shape or form because it's too risky. Very fortunate that I had a long-term care insurance policy. And that I was able to qualify for that. And that, because her thing too was all our resources were going to be going towards that. And her family has a history of Alzheimer's. So she's feared of what, if all the resources are going on me, what will she have left? So now what happens is I'm now living in assisted living. I now have the long-term care plan, and we're both very happy. in so many ways. We come together frequently. She lives in our home. I live here. And every time we come together, we say how blessed we are to be able to have what we have, to still support each other in any way we can emotionally. And yet we're never free of this thing. But our lives we now have an opportunity to really live a life we really like during this period that we can. So we went through it. And I wake up almost every morning saying how blessed I am, because I would not be here if I were still living at home. It was simple as that. So I was very lucky.
That's really interesting, and I appreciate you being so honest about that, because that's pretty significant, you know, what you just shared. And I think it's important for people to hear how difficult this can be and what it can do to a relationship. So I thank you for that. Pauline, how about you?
My husband, when I was diagnosed, I was like Laurie, the major breadwinner. And so when I lost my job and I went on Social Security, that was a tremendous decrease in finances. At the same time, I was needing more assistance from my spouse. So my spouse wound up retiring early, and we wound up moving in with my daughter. We sold our house and moved in with my daughter in an effort to be able to live well with the limited amount of money we had. So that's been a major disruption in our lives. You know, there's a reduced amount of privacy, that we have a smaller space, and a lot of that. Additionally, my husband's had to take on a lot of responsibilities that I used to carry, like balancing the checkbook, paying the bills. He is my chauffeur now. It's very difficult for someone who is younger to find public transportation, like the medical vans that go around. If you're under 65, sometimes it's difficult. And the fact that your dementia is an invisible diagnosis, people don't realize that you need the assistance. So his life has definitely changed. My life has changed. I still miss having the responsibilities I had, and I've tried to funnel my efforts into different advocacy activities instead, since I'm not able to do a lot of the things I used to do.
Okay. Can you, when you talk about missing the responsibilities, can you give people maybe an idea of some big picture, little picture of responsibilities that have changed for you?
Well, I mean, there have been a lot of things that have changed for me. You know, paying the bills and managing the money was always something that I did. And that has been a tremendous change. I still try to piddle in there with him. We try to do it together so that I still have some sense of being able to do it. But that has really been one of the biggest things. And I think that the whole idea that he now has to kind of tailor his life around my dementia. You know, he drives me to the doctor's appointments. He drives me here. He drives me there. He pays the bills. You know, this is all something new to him. So it was a new experience for him. But I think the major impact is that he has to tailor the way he talks to me. He has to listen very carefully. I repeat myself a lot of times, and I ask the same question, so he has to have a lot of patience in dealing with me.
Okay, great. Thank you. True, I'm going to go to you next.
Like the others, husband definitely had to change the way his timing of stuff, but it began much earlier for me because I got disabled at a younger age, and I've been somewhat disabled all my adult life. So that's been in the background for our relationship ever since we knew each other. But I was the one primarily dealing with money and stuff like that, and that was a hard change for him, because I told him one year, you know, I'm not going to be able to do this next year. I'm making mistakes one after the other. You need to be able to take this over. And 3 years later, it happened. But, you know, there could have been a lot of complications from that process. And it was a hard thing. And I think one of the hardest things is actually the change in the relationship focus. Because the more I need assistance, the less the focus is specifically on our relationship as partners in all the tasks of life, and instead it becomes more partners in the care of me. And that's a huge change of focus.
Do you guys talk about that? I mean, because I know some couples do and some couples don't.
Some.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you talk?
The biggest thing actually has been in involving him in the family chat, the Zoom chats like this for dementia mentors. We have one a week that includes family. And he's not interested in any kind of care partner support groups or anything like that. But he'll eat dinner with me in front of the webcam in a family chat, and that introduced him to hearing from others that these same symptoms are going on with them. It's not just a me thing. And that was very, very helpful.
Okay, good. Good. Craig, how about you?
My story is similar to Pauline's, very similar. It impacts my wife. I see her regularly going through bouts of depression. Like Laurie said, our whole plan, we ended up moving to northern Wisconsin to be in a remote area, and the plan of me retiring and sightseeing the country afterwards was impossible because the financial end of it isn't there anymore. The money's just not there. I used to do all the finances, the checking and savings and any investments that we had. She had to take that over. Now I don't even attempt it because numbers just don't make any sense to me anymore. Chores are something that I always took care of. Now you can have me a dust rag and a can of dusting stuff and tell me to dust, and then it has to be explained to me in detail or else I can't do it. But the only thing left that I can do is vacuuming. So she lets me do that just to make me feel better. But like cleaning the shower and the bathtubs, I can't bend over anymore because when I bend over, I fall over. So she was taking care of that until now her health is failing. She had 3 major back surgeries and now they're just taking its toll. So we had to have a cleaning company come in and clean the showers and the tubs because her back doesn't allow her to clean them also. She is my driver. I'm not allowed to drive anymore. They took my license away. So she has to drop whatever she's doing if I have something going on. I'm very involved in my church, so she has to drive me there quite often. So she's my chauffeur, and it can be anywhere from a 10-minute trip to a 4-hour drive. But I see her health failing because of this disease. I said with the depression, she's not able to work right now either, so she has no health insurance. So the medications that she was able to take or able to get, she can can no longer afford, because she's been going without her medications for now, but that's not helping the situation either. So I feel guilty that all these burdens have fallen onto her.
Mm-hmm.
So I try to help out where I can, but anything that has to do with sharp knives or machinery, like I used to be involved in, I used to fix all the cars, I can't do anymore. So that's all either falling into her hands or have to hire somebody to do it.
That's got to be really difficult, seeing health fail like that and not having insurance or support. Do you have any companies around you that, some do like a sliding scale? I know around here we have something called Family Means and things like that, or approaching even the pharmaceuticals. Sometimes we'll do things on, for medications for hardship and things. Have you checked into that, or?
I think one of her medications she gets from the medication company, if it's like a copay of $5, but the other ones won't do anything about it. As far as healthcare plans, we haven't found anything that's, you want to call it, subsidized. So the deductibles are ridiculous, and the copays are ridiculous also. With me not having the health insurance that I used to have, and her not having insurance, right now we have medical bills up to, I believe it's like $48,000. And that's mostly because I can't work, and she's now starting to not work. So it's a financial burden as well, and she's not only worried about me, she's worried about that. She has a lot on her plate. She has we're planning on moving to a 55 and older community in May, and so the planning of that is also putting a toll on her.
Okay. Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. I'm just wondering, as far as support goes, if, you had mentioned your church and stuff is really important. Is there a way that maybe some friends there could help you out with rides to reduce the burden on her? You're feeling that is a burden on her. It sounded like it. And is there any way that any of them may be able to help support you as a family?
I do have 3 different people from church that also give me rides. The one that actually takes me to church, sometimes they don't go, so then I don't have a ride there, so my wife has to take me, or I just don't go. It's hard finding people that they do it for nothing, so it's kind of hard to say, but it's hard finding people that are dependable on a regular basis. But we're looking for more options in that direction.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good thing to point out, because I think in every community, people struggle with that. And I always think back to when I was younger, that wasn't an issue. People always made time for one another. They always made the effort. And it just, we live in a different world nowadays, and that's too bad. And so, if people who are watching this, consciously think about how could they support somebody else, because it could be you next. I mean, nobody knows when something is going to hit them, if it's dementia or something else. And I think that compassion is missing. True.
And it isn't just that church. Over the years, I've dealt with 2 different worship places, and both it was the same way. People are more than willing to help on short-term basis. This isn't a short-term condition. It's a very long-term condition, and the helpers get tired of doing it every time. It doesn't. So it's a very special ministry for a person who can do the driving, and I've had the problem with both places.
Bob?
One of the big problems with dementia, it's a long-term grieving process, and it's not a positive process. And that's what's so devastating for both our partners and ourselves. If somebody dies, there is a grieving process and somehow we move on. This is not that way. This is a long, slow process, and the most difficult part is we know what the end is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very hard, and that adds to the difficulty for your care partner of knowing that this is a long process that's not going to get better.
Okay, thank you. Michael, I want you to chime in on this. How do you think the disease has impacted your wife?
Well, besides the normal stuff that has already been spoken about, I think one of the biggest issues I think my wife probably struggles with is when to really get involved, because I'm so good at other things, yet there's the simplest things that I can't do. And it's hard to figure out. And I believe me, I can understand coming from her shoes, because I can't even understand why I can't do some of the simplest things. So that's probably the hardest part for hers, is because she doesn't know when to step in and when not to. And, it's one of those things. She doesn't want to jump in and do something and then create a problem because she does it. And then there's times that she wants me to try to do things, and I'm like standing there like, okay, jump in, I need help. So it's like, that's probably one of the biggest and most frustrating parts that I think we have to deal with here. As you know, Laurie, many people talk to me and they're like, there's no way you have dementia. And it's if they only knew the other side of me here, the things that I can't do, it's like just so hard to fathom something like that. It's like, like with my car, as you know, I've had a lot of difficulty with other things of driving, and, I've made up for some of that now with my new car, but it's like things people just don't think of. And it's hard to understand those things unless you're living in our shoes. And it's hard for people outside of that world, including the people who are living close to us, like our spouses, to understand that. And even when you do understand it, one day you could be fine doing that same task. And then the other day, where they were able to help you out, all of a sudden you are able to do it. So it's like, mind-blowing for them too. It's like, where do you help and when do you don't help? So to me, I think that's probably the hardest part for any caregiver to try to understand when it comes to living with this disease.
Well, that's a great point that you make, in terms of, you can't maybe do some really simple things, but yet you're doing some complicated things. And then other times you can do it all, and then the next moment you can't. And a spouse that wants to be supportive but doesn't want to take over, and trying to be respectful, it's a tightrope. And so figuring out how to communicate when you need that help. So do you say, when you're frustrated or having difficulty, do you say, hey, Sherry, no, I need you now? Or do you continue to try to do it because or feel that she wants you to do it?
Well, I do try to do it, but I do sometimes get frustrated and, not thinking of it that, I was capable of doing it or something like that. You don't think about those things. You only think about the moment where you're struggling, and it's like, hey, why aren't you jumping in here type thing. It's like, it's things like that. And then she'll sometimes be looking there at me like, okay, I'm waiting for your help. Like she's looking for help from me. And I'm like, why are you waiting for me to help you? I can't think of nothing. And it's crazy. It really is, and, she does need help at times with things, and there's things that I'm capable of helping, and then there's times I just can't. And, it's more than that. It's also having the confidence in yourself, to be able to do that. And that's probably one of the biggest factors that I run into is I've lost a lot of that confidence. Mm-hmm. So it's like when you think you want to help, you're not sure that you can help or that you're going to do the right thing. So you just stand by, and you're looking for that extra little confidence in you, from them, so you can get that motion started. But it's tough.
Mm-hmm. Do you find in those moments, do you find you use any humor, or is it just frustrating or tense, or because I know some people just use humor to kind of maneuver through some of those situations.
I do use humor a lot. You know, I mean, hey, there's many times I end up laughing at myself, and you know, and I say, hey, you know, that's just the way this disease is, and you know, and I understand it and everything. But it does hurt. I mean, you know, even when you do use the humor, I mean, inside, you know, you wish you could change things. Unfortunately, you know, I'm smart enough to realize that I can't. But no matter what, it still hurts. And I'm sure she's feeling the same pains and stressors, you know, from the same things that she feels like, hey, I should have jumped in or something like that. It's like we're walking on a tightrope. It's like you're just not sure when you're going to be falling off to one side to the other.
Okay. I'm going to go up to Bob and True and then over to Laurie. So Bob?
One of the things that we haven't talked about is the guilt that the care partner has in feeling obligated to do much more. It's like you get married, you're going to be supporting each other, loving each other. And if you reach a point where the frustrations and it's so difficult, you add to that the burden of guilt as to why can't I do it better? And I've committed to this years ago. And with my wife, this guilt is one of the hardest things that she deals with.
Okay. And I would imagine that that's pretty common. I mean, we hear that from care partners all the time. True, you had a comment?
Yeah, I did. And when I realized that I needed to write it down, by that time it was gone. So it's really gone now.
Okay. We'll go to Laurie, and if it pops back up, you let me know.
I think Michael hit a lot of things right on the head. But Roy and I were always very, very independent. And in fact, we went through 2 years of our lives where we set up Tuesday night is our date night. We eat dinner tonight. We eat dinner together Tuesday nights because the rest of the week we hardly ever saw each other. We were on totally different schedules. So Tuesday night, like we didn't answer the phone, that was the night. So we were both used to doing our own thing, whatever, call each other now and then, I love you, hon, and that was it. Now, I'm home alone all day. At 4:15, if he's not home, I'm like, where is he? What's he doing? Where is he? By 4:20, I'm thinking, maybe he was in an accident. Is he okay? And often I'll call and I'll say, where are you? Remember, I told you I had to stop and get our prescription, or I had to do this. But by the time he gets home, I'm like all fretting. Where to go? What's wrong? Something's got to be wrong. And then when he gets home, I've been talking to the dogs and the walls most of the day. So I want to about nothing important because not a whole lot goes on in Oli. But he wants to sit and relax on the computer, watch TV, and just really relax. And I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I've been talking to the walls all day. Pay attention to me, you know. And that's sometimes challenging. And yet through it all, I truthfully have to say that over the course of the past 4 years, I think our relationship has strengthened. Through the challenges, through having to talk more often, because we cry together sometimes. I yell at him for no daggum reason, and he starts laughing at me or something, you know, because of the times that we have to be drawn together, whether it's give each other a hug, whether it's to laugh, to cry, to scream, to beat the walls. We have to communicate. And that I really think has strengthened our relationship in spite of the emotional roller coaster. That's another thing he deals with is the emotional roller coaster. Sometimes I just want to cry for no reason. There's absolutely nothing in the world wrong. Life is hunky-dory. Everything's great, but I have to cry or I have to scream. for no good reason. And dealing with that emotional roller coaster is tough, but I have to say I think it has brought us closer.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, I think True had some things she wanted to add too, and then I'll go to Craig and Paul Ann and to Bob. Saw a lot of hands go up.
Go on to them and go on to them.
Okay, so Craig?
Another thing that happens with this disease is I tend to lash out at things, and Michael kind of brought it up too, but there's a fine line between doing a task or being able to do a task or not being able to do a task and hurting your pride. Because this is stuff that I used to do, I could do it in my sleep. But now it just doesn't ring a bell. It doesn't make sense to me what I'm doing. So my wife is kind of like walking on eggshells to help me to do things or ask me to do things without trying to hurt my pride. That's something that I still have. But there's like I said, there's a fine line there that she kind of walks.
Okay, that's very good, because I mean we all want to feel proud and confident, and people do have to be more in tune with that. Paul Ann?
I just wanted to, I like Michael's point about how we are so changeable. So some days we can do some things and some days we can't, and our spouse has to try to figure out when to step in and when not to step in. But I guess what I wanted to say is that I think that all the focus when you have people with dementia, all the focus is on the person with dementia, and there's not a lot of focus on the spouse. Now I know that there are care partner chats and different things like that, and there are some support groups, but I know with my husband, he doesn't recognize that he needs that support. He just thinks all the support has to go to me. And although I think that that's fairly common, that the spouses don't quite get the support that they need.
I would agree with you on that, and part of it I think too is that feeling of you don't have time to do that. I know when I was caring for my folks, and again, not a spouse situation, but I think it's still kind of the same. I just didn't feel like there was time in the day to take care of me because I had other things to do. And so, and I think that's an easy way to try to meet society standards of, you got to do it all and you're supposed to be independent. There's kind of that image out there. And so people see support sometimes as a sign of weakness, and really it's a sign of strength, a sign of balance, and that needs to change. Go ahead, Pauline.
I just wanted to add something else, if I could remember it a minute here. When my father had Alzheimer's, and I watched my stepmother work with him, and then one of the biggest things that happened, I noticed in that relationship, was he isolated to where they didn't go out anymore. People didn't want to come over anymore. Friends that they had kind of left them. And I think that that's something that often happens too, that there's a social isolation that the spouse winds up going through.
Yeah. How many of you have spouses that don't want help from others? Okay. So, more than half of you. It's kind of interesting that well, no, Michael, because you had your hand up though too. I was thinking it was the women's with the husbands, but that's not true.
Or do you mean help as in a support group, or do you mean help as in,
well, probably both. Probably help as a support group or something that will help them on the care partner level. On that. So, okay.
I think maybe with the men, I'm being a little prejudiced here, but I think that men tend to not feel like they need to get support as much. They feel like they should be able to handle it, things that come along. And I think that that's part of it too.
Okay. Laurie, you had a comment then to Bob.
I think part of it also is that although we have some men on here, men generally are not the talkers that women are. Women are used to getting together in little clutches, and we like to talk on the phone, whereas typically men do less of that. So now you want me to join a support group where I have to talk to people that I don't even know? What? Get real. I think that's part of it, is that men generally are not the yak. Not that women yak needlessly. Everything we say is very important, mind you. But it tends to be easier for us than it is for men.
Yeah, it flows for us a little easier. Bob? Oh, you're on mute there.
I'm on mute. I'm unmuted. One of the things, my wife immediately started going to support groups. And one of the problems with the support groups was it was a mixed group. There were some people there needing support for early diagnosis, somebody needed and there was a whole range of support to the point when it was really, really serious.
Mm-hmm.
And she found it very depressing. She found it very depressing, and it scared her, that she'd go there and just remind her what's coming. And so she's still searching for a support group that would really be helpful to her.
Okay. Well, and a lot of times people don't realize that it's okay to shop for a support group too. Yeah. Just like you shop for friends, everybody who comes knocking on your door might not be the best mix for you. And that's okay. It has to do with dynamics. True, I know that you wanted to talk about the positive side of dementia and the effect of the relationship as well. And because I think there are some good things that can come to a relationship through dementia as well.
Well, I have written down something. I'll just read it because it's not processing. I think the necessity of learning new communication tools has brought our relationship closer together.
Okay.
That's important, very important.
Yeah. Anybody else have any comments on a positive side in terms of relationship? Do you see yourselves doing things differently? Craig?
Yeah, I think what it's done is brought and I'm not talking about sexual intimacy, but the intimacy in our relationship, I think, has become closer like it was when we were first married.
Mm-hmm.
Those little things that we do for each other that we used to take for granted, but now, like last night, she made supper, and I told her it was a good job on the supper. So the level of intimacy has come back in a good way.
Okay, great. Laurie?
I think, first off, we now have dinner together 7 days a week instead of 1 day a week. And that's better. In fact, we'll sit and play a game after dinner usually. Our communication is better because I think we have more time to actually talk to each other rather than quick, bye, hon, see you later, whatever. So we actually talk more. And Craig was mentioning the intimacy. I think we've always been ones to hold hands and whatnot, but now we're rarely in public not holding hands or kissing every now and then or something. But it's very rare that we will walk together without touching each other. And part of that is, I think, is a security for both of us. You're still here. You're still here. I got to hold you. I'm not going to let you go. But I think that's a positive. In fact, we had a woman stop her car in the middle of the parking lot one day and say, "It touches my heart to see you two holding hands. My husband and I always did that. He passed away last year." Mm-hmm. That was horrible, but it's true. I think that just the idea of I am here, we are here, it has really impacted our touchy-feely
Mm-hmm.
being.
Okay, great. Thank you. Bob, you had a comment too? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, I just did it. One of the things, as a result of this, I've been doing some advocacy and doing some public speaking, and I've been doing quite well in doing it. But they talked to my wife and said, "You sure he has Alzheimer's?" And that's very difficult. I mean, when and they'll accuse me sometimes of saying, "You have Alzheimer's." I said, "Who in their right mind would fake having dementia?" But that happens quite frequently.
Mm-hmm. Michael, do you see any positive changes for you and Sherry?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm a bit jealous of some of these folks because for a while there, I did have a lot closer relationship with her. You know, I was definitely hugging her a lot more and touching her and everything. And that seems to have gone away in the last year. I tend to kind of just be up by myself anymore. And that really bothers me. And I realize it in my mind. I think about those things that I used to do that. But for one reason or another, I don't understand why I no longer do that. So while it did bring me closer for a while, and it was a long while, it was for years. It was like I couldn't understand all of a sudden that I was, doing so much more hugging and everything. And all of a sudden now, in this last year, that has kind of changed. So while there was some good things that came out of it, it's now starting to go a whole different way. And I can only assume it's got to do with the disease because I love her as much, if not more, but yet it's just things are changing.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Bob?
Well, one of the things that we're separated, she's living in a home and I'm living here, there's really a strong sense of loneliness, especially at night when you've been married a long time and all of a sudden you're alone. I find it quite difficult sometimes.
Thank you. Pauline?
I think one of the things that I like so much now is that my husband is home. Just getting the time to spend with him that I never used to have. We were, like Laurie said, passing in the night with my career, and he had a business he owned. So I think just having the time together alone, and we're becoming more acquainted on a deeper level.
Okay, great. Go ahead, True.
My husband retired, but then he needed to get a job again. Now he's on like his third or fourth one. But, first I was going to say, I think the awareness of the temporary nature of time together is kind of pushed on us, all of us, and by this condition. And so that can create some real positive stuff, or it can create some real negative stuff. Like I've got some friends that their spouse couldn't take it and it caused a divorce. But the second thing I was going to say is, yes, he's retired, but now he has a job with the flexibility that when I really can't be alone, I'm not managing well at all, I can go with him and we can change the hours as long as he gets the job done by a certain time that day or the next day, even if we do it in the middle of the night. As long as the job gets done, he'll get a paycheck.
That's nice. Do you guys feel that it makes you more appreciative of living in the moment and what you do have? Bob, you're shaking your head, so I'm going to go up to you.
I find it's really a freedom. I find it a freedom to have this time between diagnosis and when it'll come to where I'm doing things that I'm very interested in. And I'm doing things that I probably would not have done if I'd have stayed in my regular retirement. I have now this whole thing of doing advocacy around trying to reduce dementia, which is something wholly new. And so I find it pretty positive at times. But it's what's really carrying me is those things that the opportunities that are showing up.
How about you and Roy?
I think we've learned that we have to live in the moment. I don't know that it's strengthened us or me by doing that. Because I was very happy where I was living before. I really was happy. I was happy working. I was. So, but now I know that in order for me to be happy and content, that I have to live in the moment, and I have to be happy in the moment that I'm in, and make the best of every minute, every moment that I have. And I think for Roy as well, we've learned to appreciate every day and appreciate going for walks, holding hands or whatever, versus looking at, well, next year we're doing this, this, and this. We're focusing more towards this year. This is what we want to accomplish.
Okay, great. Craig, how about you two?
Yeah, you're, like Laurie said, you're kind of forced to live in the moment because the past I can't remember anymore. So, not that I do extravagant things, but there are little things like taking a dog for a walk and appreciating the trees and the beauty of the Northwoods where I live. You kind of take that for granted, but now I look at it in a different way and enjoy it and try to enjoy every moment that I have left.
Okay. Michael, how about you?
Of course, I would like my old life back, but I extremely grateful for the time I do have now. In fact, I consider myself extremely lucky because I've lived as long as I have since I've known what I have, some kind of problem. Again, as you know, I don't really know what the hell I have at this point, but I do know I've been very fortunate and lucky to be able to continue to be living life to the fullest and enjoying things that I probably would not have done if it wasn't for this damn disease. So I'm lucky from that aspect that my wife and I go and do things that we would have waited for retirement, and we're now doing that. And it's kind of an eye-opening thing, you know, because on the one hand, you know, you kind of write in your mind off that you only have a year or a couple years left, and I guess you look at all things, I've been going at it for so damn long, it's like, do these people even know what the hell they're talking about anymore? It's like, so you can't plan on life based on what somebody thinks you may have time left for, because you just don't know.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Pauline?
I just want to add that for me, my life has changed so much in terms of I was always so engrossed in business and traveling and doing all that sort of thing that the friendships I had were very shallow. I didn't have very deep friendships, but since I developed dementia and I became involved in various activities, advocacy activities and support groups, my whole relationship system has changed. I'm much more compassionate. I have closer relationships with people than I ever would have had.
I'm going to go to True and then Bob.
I had been making efforts to be, quote, in the moment before we discovered that my cognitive problems were not probably going to get solved. And as they have gotten worse, I am finding I'm not trying to be in the moment. It's just, I quit trying to be in the moment. But I find myself, that's where I am anyway. I'm very much in the moment enough that it makes me wonder how much of it is caused by the condition.
Mm-hmm. Bob?
I don't, it's okay. It sort of disappeared, so we can move on.
Oh, sorry.
I didn't write it down.
Okay. I think this has been a really fascinating conversation to have, and I think it'll be really helpful for people. So I appreciate your honesty. Again, for those of you that are watching, please feel free to share these. That's why we do them. Spread the word, of how this disease impacts spouse or care partner, and have the conversation yourself. See how maybe you can help somebody who's been impacted.